All right, so we covered operators, but I want to show you something really cool called compound operators. So we talked about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and the modulus operator. And for the first four, I'm going to show you something called compound assignment. If we created a variable, we'll say let um, fancy number equal 3. Let's say I wanted to add 3 to that. Hopefully you remember that you can just say fancy num plus 3. So that's how you'd add it to alert it. But maybe we want to store that information. So I could create a new variable here. I could say let my new num equal fancy number plus 3. And now if we alert my new number, then we should get 3 plus 3 is 6. So we should get 6 if we pop over to our web browser. Oh, I apologize. I was using a different thing, so I need to close my server, restart my server, and now we get 6. Okay, so hopefully that's nothing too scary. You remember how to do addition, hopefully. So what we've done though is we've created a variable, and then we created another variable just to get the number 6. And maybe we don't want to do that on multiple lines. And maybe we don't want to use multiple variables. So we're going to start first by getting rid of our extra variable. So rather than saying let my new number equal my fancy number plus 3, why don't we just overwrite what was in my fancy number? So my fancy number was 3, and then we added 3 to that to get 6. And if we assign it back to itself, then it will be updated from being 3 to being 6. So let's do that. So we'll say fancy num equals fancy number plus 3. And now when we alert fancy number, we should see 6. So if we pop over, we see 6. We reload our page, we see 6, exactly like we were expecting. So we said take the 3 and call it fancy number. Then take that fancy number and add 3, which will give us a total of 6, and store that back inside of fancy number. So now when we get to this line, fancy number is 6. So now we've cut down the number of variables we're using. There's a way to cut it down even further so you're not using multiple lines of code. Rather than saying this equals itself plus 3, there's a shorthand notation for this because we don't like typing that much. So we'll say fancy number plus equals 3. What that's saying is take fancy number, add 3 to it, and then store it back. So you can see the plus and the equals are still here, but it saves us from having to type fancy number twice. Line 19 and line 21 are exactly the same functionality-wise. This is just a shorter way of doing it. So what we're saying is take what was already in fancy number, add 3 to it, and then save it. So just to prove this is the case, we'll comment out this line. So this is a 3, and we're saying take what's already in the variable, meaning 3, add 3 to it, and save it, which means when we alert, we should get a 6. So if we save this, and we come over here, there's our 6 from last time. If we reload our page, we get a 6 again. And that is because of compound assignment. So compound assignment doesn't just work with addition. You can do it with multiplication and division and subtraction. So if I wanted to say fancy number equals fancy number times 2, that would say take what's in there, multiply it by 2, and then store it. I could write that on one line by saying fancy num multiply equals 2. Line 23 and line 24 are the exact same thing. We can do it with division. So if we said fancy number equals fancy number divided by 2, that's we would say take what's already in there, divide it by 2, and then store it back. So write that in shorthand, we say fancy number equals fancy number divide equals 2. And just to really hit the point home, we're going to do it again with subtraction. If you're really bored, you can skip the end of this video. All we're doing is with subtraction. So if we want to do a subtraction, we say fancy number equals what's already in fancy number minus 2. To write that shorthand, fancy number minus equals fancy number, fancy number minus equals 2. Line 29 and 30, exactly the same lines. Line 26 and 27, exactly the same lines as each other. Lines 23 and 24 are the exact same lines. Lines 19, when it's not commented, and lines 21 are exactly the same line. Compound allows us to quickly do in shorthand what would have taken us a long time to write. This is really helpful when you have really long variable names, but to describe what's being held in the variable, then you don't have to type them over and over and over. Hopefully that explained how compound assignment works, and that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching.